the world of human feelings has been much less explored than the whole of the universe put together. But now it's late. What have we been doing all these thousands of years? We've been congratulating ourselves on our progress in going faster and faster and faster. When in reality, we've only been getting further away from ourselves. Lucy, take my place, will you?
Do you think that this culture is killing the planet?
Oh, I certainly do. I think Derek Jensen puts that very well, very forcefully. I think it's becoming more and more unmistakable that that's exactly what's going on. The deepest institutions are driving this forward. It's a very basic direction and mechanism, and I think it's very hard to deny it.
Okay, why do you think that is? Why do you think this culture is so destructive?
Well, I think it has to do with the fruition of certain very basic social institutions, like division of labor or specialization. The more they advance, the more ruinous are the consequences. They just keep marching forward, and the results become more and more clear as a function of the very nature of these institutions. The other one I would say, the way I look at it, is domestication. And as Paul Shepard said, that all of these, the arrival of genetic engineering and cloning and so forth, that's nothing but the fruits of domestication from the very beginning. It's implicit in the very beginning, is the way he put it. The first step is the step that brings all the rest. It's just the logic of it. As Adorno would say, the inner logic of it.
cirklar och kan inte hinna fram. För livet det snurrar mot en otryggare famn. Det blir så väldigt komplicerat och kan ställa till besvär. Så här inne är vi trygga i vår egna atmosfär.
Small cages which are typical for monkeys used in medical research all around the world, these tiny wire barren cages with usually nothing in them at all. They are so horrendous. I mean, I've spent my life in the wild. I know what it's like for a social living creature with the intelligence of a monkey. They have this rich social life. They're surrounded by their family. They're challenged every day. Their minds are working. And their lives are just fantastic out in the forest. And to see a monkey alone in a cage like that with nothing to do, so that they go completely crazed with boredom and sadness probably, it's deeply, deeply disturbing.
One day I was just sobbing, and I called a friend of mine, Jeanette Armstrong, who's an Okanagan Indian, and I said to her, "God, this work is just killing me. It's just breaking my heart." She said, "Yeah, I know, it'll do that." I said, "Man, the dominant culture hates everything, doesn't it?" I said, "Yeah, it does, even itself." I said, "It has a death urge, doesn't it?" She said, "Yeah, it does." I said, "Unless it stops, it's going to kill everything on the planet, isn't it?" She said, Yeah, unless it stopped." I said, "We're not going to make some great new glorious tomorrow, are we?" And she said the best thing she could possibly say, which is, "I've been waiting for you to say that." And the reason that was the best thing she could say is because it normalized my despair. And it let me know that despair is an appropriate response to a desperate situation.
Now I want to kill.
And it let me know that sorrow is just sorrow, and pain is just pain, and fear is just fear.
But what is there to do but survive? Yes, we sing, we dance, sometimes we make jokes, we make love. If not, we deny life. We work for them so we may survive, and we survive for a reason: revenge.
A quick death from a sniper's bullet or a rocket attack from an F-16, a crushing, suffocating death beneath the rubble of a bulldozed building, a slow, bleeding death in an ambulance held for hours at a checkpoint, a dark death on the torture tables of an Israeli prison, a random, arbitrary death as their tanks spray a crowd with machine gun fire, a cold, calculated death from malnutrition and curable diseases. 1,000 small deaths as you watch your family die around you. And if you face all of this death and indifference and keep your humanity and your love and your dignity and refuse to surrender to their terror and despair, then you know something of the courage that is Palestine.
creature living in the thrashing endgame of civilization, I am intimately acquainted with the landscape of loss, and have grown accustomed to carrying the daily weight of despair. I've walked clear cuts that wrap around mountains and drop into valleys, and climbed ridges that fragment watershed after watershed. And I've sat silent near empty streams that 2 generations ago lashed into whiteness like uncountable salmon coming home to spawn and die. A few years ago, I began to feel pretty apocalyptic, but I hesitated to use that word, in part because of those cartoons I've seen of crazy penitents carrying the end is near signs, and in part because of the power of the word itself. Apocalypse. I didn't want to use it lightly. And then a friend and fellow activist said to me, what's it going to take for you to finally use that word? Will it take the death of runs of salmon so large that people are afraid to put their boats in the water because they capsize? So large that horses were afraid to get water. So large that you would hear them long before you would see them. Or maybe it'll take the death of flocks of passenger pigeons so large they darkened the sky for days at a time. So large they were as loud as thunder, moving 60 miles an hour. Maybe it'll take the death of flocks of Eskimo crows just as large. Maybe it'll take the turning the sea off San Diego into a dead zone. Maybe it'll take putting down oxygen in every mother's breast milk. Maybe it'll take 90% of the large fish in the oceans being gone.
Do you think that it will undergo a voluntary transformation then to say in a sustainable way of living? I mean, a lot of people, at least, seems to have some kind of agenda to make it more sustainable.
Well, there are people that would like to be comforted with what I think is the illusion that certain partial steps will be okay or will be sufficient, but it's a much more thoroughgoing thing that's going to have to happen to change it. The whole question of a voluntary change, I mean, that depends on what you think is efficacious. What would be effective? And that's a whole question in itself. The question that Derek Jensen brings up from time to time, or regularly, I would say, is that he just ridicules the idea that there'll be a voluntary shift away from it. But I'm very much more hopeful, frankly. I think that when we see what's going on, that it's not, to me, so unlikely that people will say, well, this is causing such negative results in every single sphere. Why wouldn't people think about doing something different? I mean, to me, it's more irrational to think that people are not going to be able to confront this and draw the obvious conclusion than it is to say, oh no, nobody will ever veer from this suicidal course of civilization and technology. I mean, who knows? It's impossible to say, of course, but I feel that there are grounds for not just thinking that there would never be any shift in people's consciousness.
We rose up to seize the state, but found that the state did not exist, that in reality, we faced a system stretching far beyond our borders. But we were born in the struggle, and we have defeated other empires before this one. We did not overthrow apartheid through elections or decisive military engagement. We defeated apartheid, and we will stop this war by making it unworkable on the ground through thousands of collective acts of rebellion and disobedience.
The state itself causes and profits from the various injustices we struggle against, how is it logical to believe the system will change without being forced?
So much of what I feel like needs to happen right now is just, they need to stop, really. You know, for some reason, I was sort of reminded of this line that a friend told me where I've been staying in the last few months. He said, nature's default mode is healing. And really what we need to do to, you know, end a lot of, you know, the difficult, destructive tendencies that are perpetuated against the natural environment by industrialized nations is just to simply stop and let the natural world recover. And it's not industrialization that's going to create independence. You know, it's basically sowing the seeds for all of our eventual destruction. And in that way, you know, development is really just really a hypocrisy, you know. It's a violence with language, that term.
do you think that can be something that wakes people up? You know, when they see how crazy the weather is
I'm
becoming.
sure. Oh, sure. I think that's the most visible sign, and you see these big motion pictures now that are certainly assuming the course of it, which is a disastrous course, clearly. It's already out there. I mean, it's no secret to anyone, and it's that it won't get worse and worse you know, there's no basis for that. So I think that's part of it. That's just, and that's the fundamental thing, obviously, the extreme weather, the consequences of all of the global warming phenomena. That's kind of hard to miss.
Don't you think it's a problem that, you know, a lot of people seem to think that the only thing we have to do is to use green technology. I can't remember the word in English, but, you know, sort your, you know, when you throw away your stuff that you
recycling.
Recycling.
Sure.
Things like that.
Yeah, well, that's, of course, the dominant mode of thinking is that technology, which in such a very, very large measure has created this problem, we need more of it. I mean, that starts to break down, I think, as a solution. It's just because the results don't measure the claims. I mean, it's true in health. It's true in a lot of things. The more and more technology there is, the worse it's getting. So you could say, yeah, there's a widespread belief. There's a hope that this will all, they'll find some magic technological solution, but if you don't have results in that direction, then you don't have much basis for that faith. You know, that faith erodes as it is right now. I mean, it's not working out that way. So it's the reality that teaches people, not ideas. You know, it's what they see, what's actually happening, and that's going to be the learning curve. You know, that's what the decisive thing is, after all.
What do you want to hear? Fairy tale? Explain to me what's going on. That's something you'll have to find out for yourself. You're still afraid? Yes. Of what? I don't know. You're still there? Say something. A chilly sense of emptiness. Do you understand me, Al? Sure, I understand.
So you think that the best thing to do is to explain to people that green technology is not sustainable?
Exactly. Expose how ludicrous this is. They just want more production. They have to begin to question the whole mass production, the whole massification, and the whole technoculture foundations. That's the basis for the crisis, and it's rather easy to point that out. Not that you instantly convince everybody, but it makes sense. It explains the crisis, and it explains its development, and it also explains what you have to do to change it. You know, I think you can make a very lucid case, and it becomes persuasive the more the reality matches up with your version of it, this version of it, let's say, than the one that the system puts out.
What do you think about people who say that we actually are too powerless to make a difference, and that the best thing we can do is to outlive the civilization? You know, just wait for the collapse and go from there.
Yeah, that's the kind of lifeboat idea. We'll just, we can't do anything. We'll just hope to weather the storm. Well, I don't like the passive stance in the first place, and it's certainly very questionable. If you just wait for the brighter day, it's not going to be brighter. It's going to be worse. I think that, that's just the wrong kind of approach. There's people that give up on facing what's really going on and what would really be required. It's somewhat understandable, but it's not going to work. There's no place to hide. It's coming everywhere. And, is there a basis for thinking you can just write it out or just think about something else until it gets better? I think it's really escapist. It's not responsible.
Yeah.
So it's related to the question of powerlessness, though. If you can't see a way of being part of the active solution, then you're more tending to think, well, and we just have to see if we can survive it. Naturally that follows. But I think we have to show that we do have. We can think about this and confront it and start changing the public dialogue, start exposing all of the piercing through the denial and showing that we have to get rid of all of these nonsensical approaches, including the left. And that can be done. That can be done. You can go ahead and do that and clear the decks for a real turn, for a real change.
What do you think is the problem with the left then?
The problem is, I think the problem with the left is fundamental. It goes to not just the eco crisis, but a lot of other things that it just seemingly refuses to deal with. And I think the basic reason is that it partakes of the productionism of Marx in the first place. This is what Baudrillard pointed out quite a long time ago in the book Mirror of Production, that the leftist idea of progress, of technology, of perfecting the means of production and always expanding them, which is basic Marxism, it really has, it's not just Marxism itself, that's just the problem of the left across the board. They can't seem to break with that. They just still want to have mass production and the industrial world. They don't see something else. They can't entertain the idea of something radically different. So there are very big obstacles, because things are always a matter of options or alternatives, and you have to remove the false alternatives, the ones that are keeping us from solving the problem.
Oh, okay. You think it's the same thing with the autonomous left too, the anarchist left, if you want to call it?
Well, the anarchist left is, if you call it that, there's a change going on. I think what is ascendant is what we would call green anarchy or primitivism or anti-civilization anarchy. That is starting to, we'd have to talk about which place in particular we're referring to, but this is what's happening now because of the complete failure of the leftist mass production pro-factory kind of left. That's absurd, and it's fading out. They're very hostile to the critique of civilization and the rest of it for obvious reasons. But it's really already dead. But people haven't quite completed the job, I would say, of getting rid of it.
The ALF and ELF operate in small, autonomous cells.
We did not overthrow apartheid through elections or decisive military engagement.
The ALF and ELF operate in small, autonomous cells.
We defeated apartheid and we will stop this war.
The ALF and ELF operate in small, autonomous cells.
By making it unworkable on the ground through thousands of collective acts of rebellion and disobedience.
The ALF and ELF operate in small, autonomous cells. The ALF and ELF operate in small, autonomous cells.
We did not overthrow apartheid through elections or decisive military engagement.
The ALF and ELF operate in small, autonomous cells.
Walk away, me boy, and by morning we'll be free. Wipe that golden tear from your mother, dear, and raise what's left of the flag for me.
Let's say that civilization has collapsed. Do you think it's possible to forget the knowledge we have about technology and such?
To forget it?
Yeah. That's an argument you hear from a lot of people that criticizes critics of civilization. Like, we can't forget the knowledge that we have now. We can't go back to living in the Stone Age and things like that.
Well, that's an interesting point. It's a question of what is more valid, what is more healthy. Is it reconnecting with the Earth, or is it maintaining these technological approaches or values?
The sunbeams stream forward, dawn boys with shimmering shoes of yellow, on top of the sunbeams that stream toward us, they are dancing.
In other words, if you can see that a wrong turn was made and mistakes are made that make the situation worse, you would think that those are things that we need to see and learn from and not repeat. We wouldn't want to recycle the same disaster. I wouldn't think, anyway. So why wouldn't you forget it? Not forget it in terms of amnesia, but maybe it's better to remember, what do these things bring? If you think that this is the promise and of a better life and so forth, well, is it? Yes or no? And if you think it is, then you're going to cling to it. And if you don't, then you're not going to cling to it. But we have this vantage point, it strikes me, that we can see where some of this has been leading and what the result is, and so we can do something better.
Yeah, change the guy's side point. Point. Tres. Hoi. Này, này, số ai cái bao hoi. Quạt. Này, hoi, cái. Này, ai take over? Này, cái. Yes. Này, cái. Cinco. Ai nè, ai bao. Ba cái. Ai ó. Ba. Này, ba cái số ai. Ai ó. Ai, cái bao hoi, ao aga. Seis. Này, ba cái số ai. Này, cái. Ba cái số ai. Sete. Ai, que o não. Não, aqui. Này, ba cái số ai. Này. Aqui. Này, ba cái số ai. Ai ó, cái.
2, 3, 4.
We'll start with the idea that language really can influence how we think. One example of this was described this summer in the journal Science. To look at this example, we need to visit Brazil and the Paraha people. Our guide is Dr. Peter Gordon from Columbia University. He spent time with the Paraha and has observed their culture. One of the many interesting features of the Paraha is the fact they only have counting words for 1 and 2. Any quantities larger than this are referred to as many. But according to Dr. Gordon, even the counters they have aren't specific.
Even 1 and 2, it turns out, are very vague. And so 1 really means sort of 1, and it could mean 2 or 3, and then 2 means, more than 1, but but that's vague too. And in fact, the word for 1, and so the words for 1 and 2 are actually very similar. So the word for 1 is hoi, and the word for 2 is hoi, and they just differ in the tone, whether it's falling or rising. And then the word for 1 also means small. So if you wanted to say this is small and that is big, you would also use the word hoi to mean small. And so there's actually no distinction being made between a sort of discrete numerical quantity and a sort of overall size.
Speaking life. I am learning the native language of my area because I want to speak and think and sing in the living tongue born of the mother on which I walk. I want the birds in the grasses to hear my words as they would hear the crackling frost and the talking stream. I want the hills to befriend me as a speaker of the sweet language they have echoed for untold generations of its speakers. I want to honor life in words that speak life. I want my family to share the beauty within these words and the wisdoms that come through them with words that know how to respect and express such voicings.
So what do you think is the alternative then? Is it going, because a lot of people say you can't go back. I think I mentioned that earlier, I mean, that's the usual response.
Well, I think we have to. That's just, to me, that's very annoying. People just repeat that without thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what does that mean? So we go forward into a worsening, crazy reality? I mean, if you know what I mean? That's kind of a mantra that people say, but what does it actually mean? I mean, and I know that there are native people who don't accept that at all. They would love to go back. They would. Yeah. They don't. They have seen everything taken away, and they prefer the other way. So let's listen to that for a change.
Yeah.
Querido
the way that I see it too is that people who defend advanced technology doesn't seem to understand that you can't have the technology without the system, you know. I mean,
Exactly.
it's you know, a group of, a small band of persons can't really develop a computer, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's. I think you make a very important point. If you don't have the industrial basis, then you don't have any of this stuff, really. And who's going to provide the industrial basis? That's a question I perennially ask in public. Do you want to go down in the mine or work at the smelter or the warehouse or the assembly line? I don't. And if you're an anarchist especially, how are you going to force people to do that? They're not going to do it willingly. You know, it's been a matter of coercion historically. So if you want the computers and all of these things, whatever it is, high rises or something, then you're going to have to do the work. As you point out, this is a mass society where people are forced to do things. Then you have them. But if you have a state of freedom, as you point out, a small group of people isn't going to be able to provide that. Which is a point Derek Jensen makes. You know, that's, go ahead and do it. But I don't think you'll have many people that want to do all the metallurgy and all the toxic dredge work and all the rest of it. You know, how are you going to do it? So in a way, it's hopeful to me in that regard that how much does it take to keep the system running and reproducing itself? It's a very big matter of tension and coercion, and really, it's their problem, really, not ours. It's a problem if you want to keep it all going, but we don't want to keep it all going. I don't want to keep it all going. There have to be practical moves. You know, we have to get ready for living in a different way, and I think there's more and more of that. There's more interest in that. Not just anarchists doing it, of course. There are all kinds of people, but yeah, I think we have to start thinking about the actual, fundamental questions. What are we going to eat? You know, how are we going to live? And the rest of it. If you're talking about making a critique of domesticated life and all the rest of it, well, you've got to have some options. You know, you have to be able to think about how did people used to live and what could we do to start the transition in that direction, I think.
inside my transmission. Oh, energy, oldest religions, simple and clear, pour out a lesson into our dreams. Eagle man climbing the skies, red light of evening falls like rain. Rainbow's my arm, the sky is my loom. I will weave sunsets later on.
What is the simplest plan? I will tell you. 600 prisoners walk out the main gate. They just walk out. Right after evening roll call.
They just walk out the front gate. That's impossible. That's crazy.
Except for one thing. Nothing is impossible for us. So let us create a plan. We're 600 prisoners. Walk out the main gate.
Gather the rainbow, yeah, yeah. Want you to know I'm a rainbow too. To the rescue, here I am. Want you to know, y'all. Can you
Someone said that you can't make the revolution by promising people less. Well, the making the revolution part of it isn't the way I'd put it, but the statement brings up a key point. That is, to me, what we have now is less, and going away from mass society really is more. The further we go along the road of technological progress, the more reduced and dependent and artificialized and so forth we are. Isolation, stress, depression, anxiety mount. Is this the more that we should be defending against the less of reconnecting with the natural world? And so I don't think so, and I think that more people can see this as the crisis comes in on all of us in all these different spheres of life. What's needed is that we are unafraid to say that, unafraid to make it the basis of our efforts. And there's a paradigm shift waiting to happen, in my opinion. Now, as for banning the word hope, that sounds too much like pessimism or defeatism to me, quite frankly. I'm hopeful because I think people can begin to see how things really are and where they're going. It is easy to expose the lies about all this that the dominant culture pumps out. Just too much of an affront to a basic sense of reality. I'm hopeful, and I don't rule out beforehand the possibility of taking responsibility for dumping all this nightmare, dismantling it.